Meeting to order. I think we have a quorum, and welcome to everybody who's come to hear us or to speak to us. We're glad you're here. If you've not been here before, if you read what's written at the bottom of the agenda, that's a pretty good summary of why we are here. And I encourage you to do so. The first item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it is approved. The first item of new business is the request of the city of Lynchburg to make access improvements and install signage at 901 Court Street. And who is here to speak to that? Okay. If you would tell us your name once again. I know it's Amanda,
Sure,
rhymes with
sure.
Shanda.
Yes, Amanda Adams.
Okay,
I am an architect, and I'm representing CJMW Architecture for this project.
okay, thank you. So if you would tell us your plans.
Yes, so thank you. The 1855 courthouse, we have been working for a couple of years studying the best way to improve accessibility to the courthouse. And where we came to was working on the back door, making it very much more accessible so that we preserve the side facades as well as the front facade. So in addition, we also looked at parking spaces for visitors. And with some of the changes that will be happening with the parking deck, there'll be some improved ability to have parking there. And so what we wanted to do, yes, thank you, is we wanted to connect the parking deck from the elevator over to that rear door. We have approximately 37 inches of grade difference between those 2 points. And so we can just make it, if you go to slide 9, please. Thank you. So starting at the parking deck elevator, we'll clean up the existing area coming up to the edge of the brick driveway, and then coming across with concrete until we get back to the vicinity of the historic stone sidewalk. And then we'll transition back to something that brings us up as a landing to those rear doors. Of course, we have challenges with accessibility throughout the city, in particularly around the courthouse museum. We have challenges with the brick paving as well as the historic stone. And so what we're looking at is a poured concrete sidewalk and driving surface that would be tinted and scored to emulate the materials on either side of that. We do not have specific colors in mind. You can see from this image that there's a variety of colors adjacent to us, but we'll look for something that is compatible with the materials. We do look forward to doing some mock-up panels, and the commission would be invited to review those, or we could work with Eve to review those as it gets developed. At the end of that landing, we are proposing a stainless steel railing that would resemble what we did at the front steps. Again, that's just to prevent a wheelchair or anything stepping off into the street. We also propose signage above the door that would be lighted and really start to expand this the view at the rear door. This is a close-up at the rear door. We are proposing taking off the historic replica metal gates. We'll take them off. They'll be stored inside the museum for future use in an artifact or as an artifact or an exhibit. And then at night, when the building is secure, the wood doors will be shut. This will be the appearance of the wood doors. But in the morning, when the building's opened up to the public, the doors will be opened and secured open. And then about 7 feet inside of the doors, we'll have a frameless glass entryway that will also have video intercom controls on the door for security, but it'll present a more contemporary appearance to the entry into the museum. And then in terms of signage, the existing signage on the building are the bronze plaques and then the granite, engraved granite time capsule plaque. What we're looking for on the back, again, we haven't developed it completely, but we're looking for something that has a strong visual appearance during the day, and then also a very strong visual appearance and clarity at nighttime with the evening activities. So we're looking at examples like from our Virginian in our own town, as well as other historic hotel type samples. And that's approximately where that lighted signage will hang. It'll hang suspended below that top granite landing. We're also, it's not necessarily part of the historic district as I understand, but we are looking to upgrade the signage around this, what we call the parking deck pavilion, to be something that's more, it would be on this face and wrap around to the side, but it would be something that's more contemporary, perhaps, in terms of wayfinding, so that we could have a signage board. The museum can have a signage board out on Court Street, and it would catch someone's eye to lead them to the parking deck pavilion and then around the corner to come in the rear door. And I have with me both Ted Delaney, the museum director, as well as Michael Bodner, the Public Works, if you have any questions.
Okay. Questions? Yeah, Peter?
The signage you said on Court Street, do you have anything preliminary on that?
Nothing beyond what we are showing.
Yeah, maybe I missed it. I was a few minutes late.
But,
It's just that really small, like right above the door, right? It's a Lynchburg Museum, there's something akin to that as opposed to.
Oh, above the,
Yeah.
okay, on the building itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be
Okay.
something suspended from that
Mhm.
stone landing.
Yeah, okay.
Here's the example.
Because they don't have a design yet, really you're approving the location and not, they would have to come back for what the sign looks like.
Okay. So we're approving the concept, or we're dealing with the concept.
Just a concept of a plan? Is that, everyone knows that reference? Yeah, you do. So that's what we're approving, the concept of a plan. Okay.
Well, just for
For
the sign.
the signage.
But
For the
not for
signage.
everything
Yeah.
else. Yeah.
Comments or questions?
All this is necessary. I mean, the access to the museum is very difficult, so. Including putting the concrete over the brick, riding, someone in a wheelchair having to go over that. So all that seems very necessary and thoughtfully put together.
Other comments, questions? Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as submitted.
I'll second.
Second. Okay, any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it's approved. Thank you very much. The second item is the request of Josh Standeven, or is that right?
Yeah, you got it right.
Okay. To install a concrete slab at 618 Pearl Street.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's in the back of the house. If you guys know Locust Street, Pretty much people use that as my backyard as a spot to turn around. And so nothing really grows back there. And my kids, I would love for them to have a place to ride their bikes. If you've been on that street, there's no safe place to ride a scooter or do anything. And so that's really the main reason why we want to do it.
Okay. Are there any questions? Comments? Do I hear a motion? Jerry, this was yours. Did you,
Yeah, I know. I'm okay with this because it says the back of the house, so of course
Yeah.
it is along a street, so it's actually on a street as well.
Yeah.
So sure, I can make the motion.
and it's concrete.
It's
so-
concrete, which is acceptable. It's, sure, I drove by, I looked at it again yesterday. Sure, I'll make the motion, that be
Okay.
accepted as submitted.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Mr. Sandy, then
Thank
you're
you very
good to
much.
go.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Okay, the last item of new business is the request of Nancy Marion to construct a two-car garage and apartment at 1322 Church Street. So Nancy, if you would explain.
1318 Church Street, and I own the lot 1322 Church Street. I currently use as a parking lot, and I have a bridge from the parking lot to my building, which some of you have seen. And that is pretty much what I want it to look like. So, and you've gotten other materials from me. I intend to use a metal roof, standing seam metal roof, because I think that would look a little more historic, and both buildings on either side have metal roofs. I'm kind of wanting to know from you what I can do, because I can't get a price on it. I don't know if I can do this or not until I get a price, but I can't get a price without knowing the materials, and they keep asking me, well, what kind of doors and what kind of windows? And so I need to know what you will allow. For the front windows, let's see. What are those? Those are roof colors, right? Are these siding colors?
Right here.
Hmm?
Right here. Ones are aluminum clad
Yeah.
or cellular PVC.
Yeah, so for the windows, either aluminum clad or cellular PVC, if you allow those. And I know the PVC is a little less expensive than the aluminum clad wood. I don't know, I don't quite understand why you allow aluminum clad wood when the aluminum's on the outside and the wood is on the inside, which nobody from the street can see anyway, but I don't understand all the regulations.
I think, I'm speaking for me, that it helps me to evaluate a proposal that is specific and not kind of asking us to,
Well, I really would like to get it approved, and so, I mean, I can say I'll use, so if I say I want to use PVC or whatever, that dense PVC, cellular PVC for the windows, the siding would be the basically hardy plank, hardy board, which looks just like wood siding. In the gable of the gable front end would be what looks like shingles, but they would also be that hardy plank shingles. I gave you the specifications on those, and standing seam metal roof. So those are the things. I don't know too whether the side windows, if I have any windows on the right side of the house, which the only people nobody can see it from that side. So I might not put any windows on that side because I don't really want to look at the walls of my neighbor's house either. On the left side, there will be a door and a double window on the second floor. bedroom. That's kind of what the doors, I mean, the door on the side might just be a solid door without any lights. There will be a back door out to a deck, which you won't see from any historic district.
So are there questions or comments about?
What you proposed looks great to me. It's set back. The technical aspects of the type of wood and all that, I'm going to defer to our architect next to me. If there's any real problem with one versus the other, I don't think there is.
No, I think the hardy plank siding we've approved multiple times. The shingles would be a nice accent in the gable. The windows, I think we have approved, Eve, the PVC solids before. Might think about the aluminum clad wood might be better over time for you.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, from that standpoint.
I think they would look the same from the street. I mean, whatever I get is going to look like that. I haven't found exactly garage doors that look exactly like that, but something quite similar to that. Something that looks like it would have been on a craftsman style carriage house.
Yeah, I think from an image standpoint, for me, it's good as well. I don't know, Eve, do we have to speak to color?
She has a couple of colors picked out, so you could give the option of either or. You probably need to speak to it at some level.
Those two grays?
Great.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Is in that siding color?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those seem appropriate as well, and I'm assuming white trim.
Mhm. White trim and dark roof.
What impact do we need to speak to the side and whether it's a closed door or a window? Is that
I don't think we would.
side is
Yeah, I don't
fine?
think we would care either way. That the door that you're showing, I'm assuming if it's a solid door, it would be a panel at the top in place of the wood.
Right.
So either would seem to be
Be
appropriate.
Okay.
From the historic standpoint, and the metal roof is absolutely, I applaud you for that. That's a good step. And as well, if you're doing gray siding, the black roof would be quite appropriate and fit very nicely. For me, the whole thing is a nicely done assemblage.
And it adds to the streetscape. It just does.
I mean, let's face it, we don't have a lot of garages, particularly with facing forward, but as Jerry said earlier, it's set in the far back
Yeah.
corner. Seems to be well positioned.
Other comments or questions? Or is there anything else, Eve, we need to zero in on?
I think that's it.
And you're okay with her having window options on the side and the rear?
I am.
I mean, they're showing the 2/1 layout. That I think, again,
Yeah.
appropriate.
Yeah, they would look just like that.
Given the view from is there any windows at the back of this?
Yes,
Awesome.
because that's where the view is.
Yeah.
So,
The
I mean,
view is awesome from that.
Yeah.
Been out
I mean, there are really just a couple of windows. One is in the stairwell and one is in the kitchen, not even over the sink, but I might move the sink over there. But I'm planning to put a small deck on the back so that you can go out and sit, have a cup of coffee and watch the sunrise or set or whatever. So,
Does material of the garage doors,
What does that speak to? Are they proposed?
do they have to be wooden? Can they be metal? Is there?
I think if they're in that layout, metal would, and painted, they're going to look the same, smooth. So I personally would be fine with either.
And the little illustration of the house itself that shows wooden appearing ones. I'm sure they're metal, but they look like wood. And I haven't decided yet whether I want the dark wood look or white. I kind of like the dark wood look, but so anyway.
I think either would be appropriate for me.
You're okay with
Painted
either?
or stained.
Mhm.
If it's metal, you're probably gonna want to paint.
Well, it would come already
Yeah,
wood looking, I think.
could be.
Okay, other comments, questions?
Very nice.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make this motion
Okay,
to approve as submitted, so.
all right. Is there a second? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Nancy, you're good to go.
Thank you very much.
The last item is old business, the request of Sean and Sarah. And I forgot how to say your last name, I'm sorry. Okay, Hiska. Mr. Hiska, if you would come forward. And since you were here last time, thanks to Eve, we've received a lot of information about what other HPCs are doing about solar panels. And thank you, Eve.
Yes, and they
very-
contributed some as well
Okay,
for the
well,
out-of-state ones.
it was very helpful, so.
It was an education learning experience for us as well, both reading about the other commissions in the Commonwealth of Virginia, but also wanting to find historic areas that
Yeah.
both north, south, and even as far west as I could try to find to get a wide swath of what are historical commissions doing in America
Yeah,
with this very important, I think, and very relevant topic.
absolutely, I agree. So,
What I learned was it's still all over the place.
Yeah.
It is.
yeah,
Did you do a vote count of approved, non-approved, consideration by application, Eve? You know, sort of where, did you get a feel for, they seem to be yes, no's more?
Most of them, in terms of the other CLGs, they feel that they're approvable with some restrictions similar to what we have in place. Some are definitely more lenient. I think you talked to your brother.
Yeah.
And those were all approvable administratively. So it is kind of all over the place, but leaning towards making them approvable since it is a more temporary change to the exterior of the house that can be reversed.
Yeah, I was noting to Eve, my brother served on the HPC of Portsmouth, Virginia for a number of years. It's rotated off recently, but he says in Portsmouth, they don't even solar panels don't even come to the HPC anymore. They are always, everyone approved administratively. And the city has said, we want to encourage investment in the historic districts, and knowing that panels help in terms of electrical, heating, cooling issues, they say, we are not going to stop them in any way, shape, or form. So they're 100% approved upon application. And it's interesting
yeah,
Even on terracotta.
on anything.
on
Yeah.
slate roofs.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm surprised at that.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. My
Sure.
brother's been in that historic district for 30 years and has one of the nicest homes in that historic district. And they have come into the district. His specific district has a range of conditions. There's definitely some areas of blight. And I think the city is just saying, we're going to do everything in our power possible
Yeah, to encourage.
investment in the district. And so they've just got a wholesale
Yeah,
approval without any oversight of the HPC.
but it was good to get a letter from somebody in your neighborhood. It was a well thought out letter who favors your proposal. So let's hear questions and comments.
Did we not receive a letter opposing? And also,
We did
Okay.
before the, yes, from a next door neighbor, I think.
That's correct,
Yeah.
yes. And the one in favor is on opposite us on Madison Street,
Mhm.
yes.
So,
The one additional item that I know I mentioned last month when I came before you all about the work we would do to the roof to repair anything and to repaint it. In our submission for repainting of the roof that we submitted a few weeks ago, we put in 2 color options. One being to repaint it the same similar color right now, which is an incognito, which is like a light gray bluish color, or an option to paint it black if it would favor the solar panel approval, because then there would be more of a camouflage of the panels on the roof itself. Of course, the preference would be the lighter color because there'd be less sun drawn to the roof, but we are willing to paint the roof really any color that would be sufficient for this project.
okay.
Has the city, anyone from the city weighed in terms of like kind of what he was referring to in Norfolk?
I'm sorry, what do you mean? Like,
Has anyone from the city weighed in on like we want to get behind anything happening in the historic?
City of Lynchburg.
City of Lynchburg, yeah.
in terms of the historic districts, we have the guidelines that have been established for a number of years. In terms of updates to that, we haven't really looked at that. I think our guidelines are pretty limited in
But
order
they haven't-
in order to encourage the use
Of solar panels
where they're not visible. Yeah.
where they're not visible.
One of the questions that came up is they're not visible from the front from Madison, but they are visible from the side street.
Yeah.
And I spent some time over there yesterday looking at it. But we also live in the 21st century. As I said the last time, we don't insist that you use coal. And we do allow for people to make these kind of changes. Still, it's not a slam dunk for me either way.
I didn't understand the point.
It's not a slam dunk for me either way.
No.
You can see these things. It's 21st century technology in a 19th century house. Over 90% of the housing stock in Lynchburg is not in the historic district. So people who wanted to put solar panels on their houses could live in 90% of the rest of the housing here. That being said, it is not a bad technology to start trying to embrace. So,
Because of its visibility, I feel, again, having lived adjacent to that block, that it would be imposed on the neighbors as well.
I know.
Well, I'm gonna,
Well,
from that standpoint, from the rear, I mean, your viewpoint is the street behind.
That's where I lived, yeah, you can see it on the side as
And you
well.
would be able to see it from the street behind. My mindset would be that we're the Hill City, and that's gonna be a given any and everywhere. If we start saying from an adjacent street, I mean, if we go to the Department of Historic Resources.
Well, typically we say visible from the street, from the side street, et cetera.
Yeah,
It
and
is.
for this, those little ones on the side, you get a glimpse of them at the intersection. A
Yes.
brief glimpse of them from the intersection. That doesn't bother me a great deal. I know the back is heavily visible from the street behind. But for me, if we start doing that, everything that's on a hill is suddenly has a different set of restrictions than a house that's in a different location, not on a hill. And
Well, we do evaluate them individually or case by case. I think it's the intent.
I guess I'm leaning a little bit towards the technology side of the coin, in that embracing a newer technology helps the viability of the historic home stay and be occupied, be more financially viable to be occupied from I mean, let's face it, we know historic homes are oftentimes drafty, not insulated
See, but
as well.
I feel we've been forced to uphold the guidelines for those who have come and requested a certain type of window that would be much more, provide lower cost, operating cost, that they're not able to have because it's not within the guidelines or certain things that,
Well, typically the windows that we're saying no to are the cheaper, the vinyl ones, which aren't from an energy standpoint. I think the ones that we push hard, you know, the ones that we just heard from Nancy Marion, are energy efficient windows. And we oftentimes, we approve panels to go in windows, either in storm panels, if you will, inside or outside, which definitely affect the visual. And that's accepting the fact that we need to increase the functionality of the windows. So from those standpoints, I'm definitely leaning towards agreeing that solar panels are a needed element in historic districts that we do need to pay attention. You know, if he came in and said, I'm going to put them on the front, I would be opposed to that from that standpoint of the visual. But in that they're going on the rear, we typically, if this application were for a different window on the rear of the house that wasn't visible, I think we'd be giving it a more lenient review, a more accepting review.
except isn't it very visible from all of the streets behind?
The windows or the roof?
Well,
Either.
either.
The roof is definitely.
Yeah.
Visible from the side street.
So I decided to look at this as a utility. And somewhere in everything that was sent to us it was mentioned that the people installing utilities can put them anywhere they please. We can't stop them. But that this is a new technology, that down the road something better may come along. But I would have to have a black roof to make them less conspicuous. I think personally that I embrace the new technology of solar heating of these big houses that have no idea how much it costs to heat. But
Keep the heat pretty low in the winter time.
yeah, but
But
So
We all do.
to your thinking, what you were just saying, like, I think probably I would imagine we all embrace the new technologies. I think the question is, how does it apply in the historic district? Do we have, where do we justify it with the guidelines?
if
So
the panels were on the front of the house, I think the guidelines clearly say no. And all of what I've read, says hide them as much as you can. And I think you can do that with a black roof in some of them, but
You said, I don't
just-
understand the science of it. The black roof would undermine the efficacy of these panels? Is that-
No, it would just draw more heat to the general roof itself,
Okay.
yeah. But
Okay, got it.
the panels would still be efficient because they are black themselves.
Sure.
But it would just make the appearance coming up Second Street for that short period of time where you can see them to make them blend in more.
And one of the other CLGs, that was one of their recommendations, was if you have to replace the roof prior to installation, that you use a color that makes the panels blend in more.
yeah.
I can see that.
Before we vote, get to that point, I'd like us to, we have discussed in the past needing to update the guidelines. And this is certainly an item that would be high on the list of things to be considered as we look at that. So I'd like to push the commission to make that happen sooner rather than later, to look at the guidelines holistically. I know this is, as you noted, we don't set precedents. We look at them one by one. And I know this could be against or approved by future regulations. I personally am going to vote for this, knowing that down the road, we may put more restrictions on this as we review and revise the guidelines. But in this one instance, I'd like to see us, as you know, embrace technology to make the viability of historic districts even more viable. I'm like you, I would in no way approve this on the front. But given that it's on the back panel primarily, and the visibility of that is from an adjacent block, not the block from which the house, on which the house sits, there's where I'm coming from for my justification.
And I still feel it's being imposed on the street behind them. If I go to the bylaws, to the second sentence on this topic, they should not be mounted on the primary or readily visible facades of a building. It's very readily visible from Harrison Street. If you look up to Madison Street, what would be on the roof?
Yeah, I hear you, Michael. It's that it's in a block away, pushing that far. Again, I'm going to step into my world of doing historic tax credit work, where we oftentimes are doing renovating buildings, adapting buildings that are flat roof, and we almost always have condenser units sitting up there. And they cannot be visible from the street right in front of. But if you drive down Main Street and look over at the lofts one, the one that's behind the academy, from the intersection of Main and 7th,
Sure.
you see the entire roof and every unit that's up there. And that was approved by the Department of Historic Resources and the National Park Service, because standing in Commerce Street, you cannot see those. But if I go a block away, suddenly my view shed changes and I can. And so that's where I'm going in my mind, that if I stand on Madison, I won't be able to, other than that brief glimpse at the intersection, these won't be visually impactful for me. And if this were a historic tax credit project, that view from, I apologize, I don't know the name of that street, Harrison, would not be a factor in that review, in that approval or denial of the historic tax credit application. So that's,
I'm not at all familiar with their bylaws. I only know the ones that we have to operate by, and that's what I'm referencing.
What about for both of you, the compromise of painting the roof black?
I would agree with Chairman that would definitely help in my mind.
I can't deny it. It would, if they're going to go up, it would help conceal them. It doesn't change my position, but I can't deny that it would help conceal them.
Do you feel, Emmett, that to your point about having it be something to be considered to be changed for the future in our guidelines, that should happen ahead of approving? And also, I still feel like it seems the city should weigh in on how to, like, what is their take on, like, with Norfolk being in favor of wanting that for the historic district to make it more viable. then, in good conscience, I feel we could say that is like the economic development plan or like that is what our city is embracing as we move forward versus.
I don't know Norfolk economics well, but if
It's
it's,
Portsmouth was the one I
or
was.
sorry,
Oh,
Portsmouth.
sorry.
But if
Portsmouth,
it's, hypothetically, if it were something like what Detroit was suffering through 10 years ago, I think they were offering anything. Please take these houses, don't let them fall in. Lynchburg's not, for the most part, experiencing that in these areas.
Yeah. So from that standpoint, I'm, let's face it, reviewing and then changing our guidelines is not going to happen this month, this year. Hopefully next would be something to shoot for before the end of 25 would certainly be something to shoot for. But I think we can't table this. It has to happen within 60 days of his application. We have to vote yay or nay. So we can't postpone it. And I don't think it would be fair to say, don't cool your house from that standpoint. But again, I don't think that's going to be a factor, but I would encourage us to go sooner rather than later on the guideline review format. And obviously once it's in place, we're not, even if the guidelines got more strict than they are right now, more definitive, we wouldn't come back and say, okay, now you got to take them off. It's been approved. There's no double jeopardy. I guess that's sort of double jeopardy.
I was just gonna say, like, as we've read through the different historical commissions that they've noted, the solar panels do not make a permanent change to the architecture or structure of the house. They sit on the roof, they clip on the roof, so that as technology changes, because 25 years ago, we weren't having these conversations. In 25 years, the useful life of these panels, technology is going to change even more. They might even have metal roof looking like metal that actually are solar roofs that then we could replace these with something that looks even more historically accurate. But it's not a permanent change to the roof itself. It's something that can be replaced.
Yeah. And I'd like to just note that the guidelines say whenever possible. They're not a definitive no, should not. And of course, that's up to the commission to judge case by case, but it's not an absolute do not do this.
And in response to your comments, I think it's up to the HPC to take the lead on whether we should. I like that. Yeah.
And even though we say it's a case-by-case basis, this is the first case, right?
Yeah.
These first cases since I've been on the commission.
Yeah.
And so you could say it doesn't set a precedent, but someone's going to say, but wait a minute, you approved that house on Madison Street. And so we'll keep that in mind too. So.
This is
even more reason to revisit the guidelines as quickly as possible.
There have been other approvals, but they've been mostly administrative. There was one case, I think it was in 2016, that was on a carriage house. It was on the front facade of the carriage house. That was denied by HPC, but ultimately approved by council on appeal. So those are the most recent solar panel, but there have been a couple administrative approvals.
So 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's been more recent approvals, but not through
Where
HPC.
they were generally not visible.
Yeah, they were administrative.
So do I hear a motion, or I don't want to cut off the comments, but do I hear a motion? And we have to have some disposition. We can't not have a motion.
I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to move to approve as submitted, including the black roof painting format. And as a subscript to the motion, encourage the HPC and administration to move to review the guidelines as quickly as possible,
Okay.
particularly in light of this subject.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Further discussion? Okay, are we ready for the vote?
Were you trying to say something?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, the motion passes 4-2. So,
Sarah and I want to just truly thank you all for your time and efforts and knowing that this project in its capacity was the first major project like this, and taking this topic very seriously and giving us the opportunity to do research and look at it. And we want to continue to honor and respect our historic homes, including our historic home that Nancy, who was just before us, was the prior owner. So it was like, when has that ever happened here at the HBC? But we will do all that we can to make sure that the panels are as camouflaged as possible with the black roof, and to keep that roof black, to keep those panels camouflaged over the years to come.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eve.
All right, is there anything else that we need to discuss? We have the camp meeting coming up in November. And maybe that's the time we can get some feedback from some other people about
In
this.
terms of that review of the guidelines holistically, that was mentioned, it's probably been a year ago. How do we set that in motion?
Thank you for asking that, because I don't know that answer either.
So after that conversation, we did get a couple of estimates for updating the overall guidelines, is out of our budget. So we might look at updating pieces.
That was getting professional help?
Yeah.
From
Firms
that
local
do-
firms, yeah.
From a local or?
Well, a variety. We got a couple of different estimates, but yeah, it was quite the price tag.
Like a Frazier or out of Stanton that has
Yeah.
done Main Street work for decades.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly who we got. It was a while ago, who we got quotes from. But so we could look at doing, if there are particular pieces like solar panels, we can look at updating those in-house ourselves, probably. I'm going to defer to people who have previously updated guidelines, what their process was. So I'm just going to need to look into that a little bit more.
Yeah, if you would reach out to some of the same HPC and your contemporaries as how they went through that. But my memory is that the last appeal to council, the one over off of Washington Street,
On Pearl,
on Pearl.
which still is the same.
I know, yeah.
Council was very adamant in speaking to us and saying, revisit your guidelines, update your guidelines.
Right.
So I would like to find out, get the prices from the appropriate entities.
Well, I don't think we'll be doing we just don't have the budget for
Well,
that.
I know-
There's not.
But I know
Yeah.
we, the HPC does not. The council has said to us, do it.
Right.
So we need to say, okay, for us to do it and do it correctly, here's the cost for that to happen. I think our HPC budget is pretty much non-existent. Most HPCs in the state have budgets to go to conferences, to get continuing education, to have things done. We have zero. We have spent little to no money in the 7 years I've been on. It's time to ask for money to do what we have been directed and requested to do.
Right.
So find the number, establish the number, and let's make whoever.
I think we need to let Eve talk to Mr.
Yeah,
Martin.
and like I said, the
Because
more,
we're a piece
Right.
of a huge,
the more likely action that's going to
We're a zero
happen,
cost piece,
I know that, but.
and we shouldn't be.
the more likely action is that we'll have to update it piece by piece.
I'd like us to take the holistic approach step first and be told no.
Okay.
But
Well, we
as
can
one
talk
of the things-
offline.
This is
All right.
in spite of some differences of opinions about other things in the past, this is the one that's really
barely chartered territory, right? We're really into new with solar panels. And so I would suggest that this is the one thing that's come up in the last 3 years that we really, what we got from those reports really was all over the place. Including someone saying, look, we're really curious what you do, so we want to learn what you do so we can follow you. And so it would be very helpful if you want, in my mind, the one piece is solar panels, or let's say updates of technologies such as solar panels, and how exactly one could do that as opposed to other things that one could list.
And I think we need to look at windows.
Actually,
I mean, there's a whole litany of, a whole
Yeah.
list of things that
Yeah.
need to be,
Yeah.
I mean.
We can add cellular PVC to windows, but I don't think we really have an issue with windows. It's that people just choose not to use the approvable options. So I think there's a
Yeah.
couple of different factors
But
going
we've
on.
added some things that we've approved.
Yeah, like the cellular.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think Department of Historic Resources has a woman who focuses on certified local government.
Yeah, it's Aubrey.
Okay, yeah, and she could be a resource that maybe,
Yeah, she's who I went through before.
yes,
Mhm.
maybe there's a tally of all the COGs that have HPCs that could, speak to solar panels, for instance, and say, okay.
Well, that's that email list that I use.
Yeah.
That's all the CLGs. It goes out to everyone, and then people choose to respond or not.
Yeah, and
It's
so maybe she
hit
has
or miss.
more clout than,
Well, it comes from her.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm. It
just
doesn't.
to say, okay,
Yeah.
out of the dozen, I don't know how many there are across
Yeah.
the state, but out of the dozen, 80% approve or
Right.
2% approve, whatever that number is.
Well, it sounds like they all approve. There's just slight differences in how restrictive.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Let's get feedback.
Anything else?
That's my soapbox for the day. Sorry.
That's okay. All right, we are adjourned, and our next meeting is right before Thanksgiving, I guess.